We're going to take a deep dive into something today that I think is pretty fascinating.
Okay.
It's soft skills in facilities management.
Hmm.
So we've got these articles, why the future of facilities management depends on mastering soft skills, soft skills in facilities management.
Okay.
And we're going to unpack what they have to say about this, kind of unexpected but increasingly vital aspect of the field.
Yeah.
Maybe you're prepping for a meeting, maybe you're thinking about a career change, or maybe you just, love staying ahead of the curve.
Right.
Whatever the reason. Get ready for some aha moments as we really dig into this.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
This is a really interesting topic, and it's something that I think a lot of people don't really think about when they think about facilities management.
Right, exactly.
Traditionally, it's been seen as this very technical field, but these sources are really suggesting that a major shift is underway.
For sure, and it's not just about your HVAC systems inside and out anymore. Did you know that facilities managers who are really skilled negotiators, they can actually reduce contract costs by 15%?
Wow.
That's the kind of impact we're talking about here.
That's huge. Yeah, it really highlights how facilities management is evolving beyond just sort of maintaining buildings.
Yeah.
It's becoming much more about managing people and resources and navigating this constantly changing landscape.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's unpack this idea of a transition from hard hats to soft skills.
Okay.
Which both of our sources really emphasize.
Yeah.
So what exactly is driving this change?
Well, traditionally, facilities management was very much focused on those core hard skills, electrical systems, plumbing, safety regulations,
right,
all the nuts and bolts of keeping a building running. But, with technology advancing at such a rapid pace and sustainability becoming more and more critical, the game is changing.
Yeah.
One of our sources puts it perfectly. While technical skills such as managing HVAC systems and ensuring safety compliance are still necessary, soft skills have taken center stage.
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
It is.
It's like the industry is realizing that, technical expertise alone just isn't enough anymore.
Exactly. And, this shift is being driven by a number of factors.
Okay.
For example, buildings are becoming increasingly complex with sophisticated automation systems, integrated technologies, and sustainability features that require a different kind of expertise.
Yeah, it's not just about fixing a leaky faucet anymore.
Right.
It's about understanding how all these complex systems interact and how to manage them effectively.
Exactly. And then on top of that, you have the growing emphasis on sustainability, which demands a much more holistic and collaborative approach to facilities management.
For sure.
This means working closely with other departments, external stakeholders, and even tenants to achieve those common goals.
Right. And that actually brings us to another key point highlighted in our sources.
Okay.
The importance of collaboration.
Yes.
One article actually mentions that almost 80% of facilities management professionals need to collaborate with other teams regularly.
That's a huge number, and think about it.
Yeah.
You've got architects, engineers, contractors, IT specialists, sustainability consultants, and then, of course, the building occupants themselves.
It's like a whole web of relationships.
It is.
That facilities managers have to navigate.
It's a very intricate web.
It is, and without effective communication, that web can quickly become tangled.
Absolutely. Poor communication can lead to misunderstandings, delays, costly mistakes, and even strained relationships.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, think about a time when a project you were working on totally went off the rails because of miscommunication.
All the time.
So frustrating. It happens all the time.
Yeah, and this statistic really puts a number on just how much of an impact clear communication can have.
Yeah.
And it's not just about avoiding negative outcomes either. Effective communication can actually drive positive results.
Okay.
Our sources point out that teams with strong communication are 25% more productive.
Wow. That's a pretty compelling argument for prioritizing communication skills.
It is. And, it goes beyond just conveying information clearly. It's also about active listening, understanding different perspectives, and, really trying to build consensus.
So it sounds like communication is really kind of the foundation for everything else in facilities management.
I would say that's a pretty accurate assessment. Without clear and effective communication, it's virtually impossible to build those strong relationships, solve problems collaboratively, or lead teams effectively.
Okay, so we've established that communication is crucial,
Yeah.
but what about negotiation?
Yeah.
That's another soft skill that our sources emphasize. And I think there are a lot of misconceptions about what negotiation actually entails in facilities management.
Yes, absolutely. People often think of negotiation as this like adversarial process.
Yeah.
Where you're trying to outsmart or manipulate the other party to get the best deal for yourself.
Right. It's like that stereotype of like the used car salesman.
Exactly.
All about the hard sell and getting one over on the customer.
Right.
But that's not really what effective negotiation is about, is it?
Not at all, especially in facilities management where you're often building these long-term relationships with vendors, contractors, suppliers.
Right.
Effective negotiation in this context is about understanding each other's needs, finding common ground, and working towards a solution that benefits everyone involved.
It's about creating win-win situations,
Yeah.
not just winning at all costs.
Exactly, and it's about recognizing that negotiation is an ongoing process, not just a one-time event.
Right. You're constantly negotiating in facilities management.
You are.
With your team, with your superiors, with tenants, with vendors. It's a skill that you're always honing.
That's right. And one of our sources points out that organizations that invest in negotiation training for their facilities managers actually see a 15% reduction in contract costs. Yeah.
Wow, that's significant.
It is.
It's like having a secret weapon
Right.
to unlock better outcomes for everyone.
Exactly.
So we've covered communication and negotiation, but there's another soft skill that our sources highlight
Okay.
that might seem a little unexpected in the world of facilities management.
What's that?
Empathy.
Empathy. Okay.
Yeah, I know it might seem a little bit counterintuitive at first.
It does. Yeah,
Actual-
it's not the first thing that comes to mind when you think of, managing buildings and infrastructure.
Right, but our sources make a pretty compelling case for why it's actually so crucial.
Okay. I'm interested to hear more about that.
Yeah, let's dive into that in part 2.
Sounds good. So we were talking about empathy before the break.
Yeah, and why it's so important in facilities management.
Right. Which might seem a little counterintuitive at first.
Yeah, it's not really the first thing that comes to mind
Right.
when you think of managing buildings and infrastructure.
Exactly. But our sources, they make a really compelling case for why it's actually so crucial in this field.
Okay, so break it down for us. Like why empathy? Why is that so important?
Well, it really boils down to this facilities management. It's ultimately about people.
Okay.
It's about creating environments where people can live and work and thrive.
Right.
And to do that effectively, you need to understand those people, their needs, their perspectives.
So it's less about the bricks and mortar
Right.
and more about the human element.
Precisely, think about it this way. You could have the most technologically advanced, energy-efficient building in the world.
Okay.
But if the people who occupy that building are unhappy or uncomfortable, it's not really a success, is it?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's like having a state-of-the-art car with all the bells and whistles, but the seats are uncomfortable and the steering wheel's in the wrong place.
Yeah.
It defeats the purpose.
Exactly. And that's where empathy comes in.
Okay.
It allows facilities managers to see things from the perspective of the building occupants to understand their concerns and to address those concerns in a way that creates a positive and productive environment.
Okay, so can you give me a specific example
Sure.
of how empathy might play out, like in a real-world facilities management scenario?
Yeah. Imagine a tenant calls to complain about the temperature in their office.
Okay.
A facilities manager without empathy might simply, check the thermostat,
Right.
see that it's within the acceptable range, and dismiss the complaint.
Just like a box-checking exercise.
Right. But an empathetic facilities manager would take a different approach.
Okay.
They would listen carefully to the tenant, acknowledge their discomfort, and try to understand, why they're feeling that way.
Okay.
Maybe the tenant is particularly sensitive to temperature changes, or maybe there's a draft near their workstation.
So instead of just focusing on the technical aspects of the problem,
Right.
they're actually trying to understand the human experience behind it.
Exactly. And that can make all the difference in finding a solution that truly addresses the tenant's needs.
It's about building trust and rapport too.
Right. It is.
Like when people feel like their concerns are being heard and understood, they're much more likely to be satisfied with the outcome,
Right.
even if it's not the perfect solution they were hoping for.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another important aspect of empathy. It can actually help to de-escalate conflicts
Okay.
and create a more harmonious work environment.
You think-
When people feel understood and respected, they're less likely to become defensive or confrontational.
That makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about communication, negotiation, and empathy.
Right.
Are there any other essential soft skills that our sources highlight?
Well, they all kind of weave together, don't they?
Yeah,
Communication and negotiation are definitely strengthened when empathy is added to the mix.
for sure.
But I'd say effective leadership is another critical skill
Okay.
that often relies on all three.
It's interesting you mentioned leadership because one of our sources argues that leadership in facilities management is evolving. So what do they mean by that?
I think it reflects the changing nature of work in general. You know, that traditional top-down command and control style of leadership.
Right.
It's becoming less and less effective.
Especially in today's world. Yeah.
Especially in today's world. And that's especially true in facilities management, where you're dealing with, complex systems, diverse teams, and a constantly changing landscape.
So what does effective leadership look like in the context of facilities management?
It's less about giving orders and more about inspiring, motivating, and empowering people.
Okay.
It's about creating a shared vision, fostering collaboration, and providing support and guidance to help team members achieve their full potential.
So it's more about like leading by example.
Right.
Demonstrating strong communication skills, empathy, a willingness to listen to feedback.
Exactly. And it's about being adaptable and flexible in the face of change, which is constant in this field.
For sure. Okay, so if we're talking about leading teams, we have to talk about teamwork too, right? That's another soft skill that our sources emphasize.
It is, and it's closely linked to leadership. You can't have effective teamwork without strong leadership and vice versa.
Right, and our sources actually highlight some pretty compelling statistics
Okay.
about the benefits of teamwork in facilities management. They say that organizations that prioritize teamwork see a 20% increase in project success rates.
That's a pretty significant impact.
It is, and it really underscores the importance of investing in training and development programs that focus on building those teamwork skills.
Absolutely.
So what kind of skills are we talking about specifically?
Well, it's a whole range of skills, really.
Yeah.
Things like communication, collaboration, conflict resolution, problem solving, decision making.
Right.
They all play a role in effective teamwork.
It's about creating a culture where people feel comfortable sharing ideas,
Yeah,
challenging assumptions, and working together towards a common goal.
right. And it's about recognizing and valuing the unique strengths and perspectives that each team member brings to the table.
Okay, so we talked about how these soft skills like communication, negotiation, empathy, leadership, and teamwork, they're all interconnected and essential for success in facilities management.
But they are.
But how can someone actually develop these skills?
Yeah.
Like, are there specific things they can do to improve?
There are definitely things you can do.
Okay.
And that's what we'll be diving into when we come back for part 3. So we were talking about how to actually develop these soft skills and put them into practice.
Yeah, like it's one thing to understand like the importance of these skills conceptually,
Right.
but it's another thing entirely to actually apply them effectively
It is.
in like real world situations.
Absolutely.
Okay? And like it's easy to say be empathetic,
Right.
but what does that actually look like when you're dealing with like
Yeah.
a frustrated tenant
Right.
who's dealing with like a recurring maintenance issue?
That's a great example.
Yeah.
Let's say a tenant calls to report that the AC in their office is constantly malfunctioning.
Okay.
And they've already submitted multiple work orders and it's still not fixed.
Right.
Understandably, they're frustrated.
Yeah. They're going to be upset.
Right. So how would you approach that situation using, those soft skills we've been talking about?
Well, I think the first step is like really active listening.
Yeah.
Don't just like jump in with a defensive explanation or try to like brush off their concerns.
Right.
Instead, like really take the time to hear them out. Let them vent their frustration, acknowledge their inconvenience,
Yeah.
and make sure they feel understood.
Absolutely.
So it's about like validating their experience,
Right.
not just fixing the technical problem.
Exactly. And that's where empathy comes in.
Okay.
You need to put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
And try to see the situation from their perspective.
Right.
How would you feel if you were dealing with a broken AC in your office day after day?
Oh, man. I'd be miserable, especially if it was the middle of summer.
Right. So once you've listened to their concerns and acknowledged their frustration, then you can start to move towards a solution.
Okay.
And that's where clear communication and negotiation skills come into play.
Yeah, you need to be able to explain like what steps you're going to take to address the issue.
Right.
And if necessary, negotiate a solution that works for both parties.
Precisely. Maybe you need to bring in a specialist to diagnose the problem.
Right.
Or perhaps you need to offer a temporary solution, like providing fans.
Okay.
Or moving the tenant to a different workspace while the AC is being repaired.
Right. It's about finding that balance between, meeting the tenant's needs and working within the constraints of your resources and responsibilities.
Exactly. And throughout this entire process, it's important to maintain a calm, professional, and respectful demeanor.
Yeah.
Remember, you're not just dealing with a technical issue.
Right.
You're dealing with a person who is experiencing, discomfort and inconvenience.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've talked about how soft skills can be used to handle like a challenging tenant situation.
Right.
But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about leadership in the context of facilities management. How can someone develop their leadership skills and actually put them into practice?
Well, one of the best ways to develop leadership skills is to seek out opportunities to lead, even in small ways.
Okay.
This could involve volunteering to lead a team project, mentoring a colleague, or simply taking initiative and offering to help out when you see a need.
It's about stepping outside of your comfort zone a little bit.
It is.
And taking on new challenges that allow you to stretch your leadership muscles.
Exactly. And when you are in a leadership position, remember that effective leadership in facilities management is about empowering your team, not micromanaging them.
Right. It's about providing guidance and support.
Right.
But also giving people the autonomy to do their jobs and make decisions.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of clear communication and positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
Make sure your team understands the goals and objectives. Provide regular feedback and acknowledge their contributions and successes.
It's about creating a culture of collaboration and mutual respect.
It is.
Where everyone feels valued and supported.
Absolutely. And remember, leadership isn't just about telling people what to do.
Right.
It's about inspiring them to do their best work.
Yeah, it's about fostering that shared sense of purpose and creating an environment where everyone feels motivated to contribute to the team's success.
Exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah, we really have.
But if there's one key takeaway, I hope you'll remember it's this.
Okay.
Soft skills are not just a nice to have in facilities management. They're essential for success,
Yeah.
both on a personal and an organizational level.
They can help you build stronger relationships, solve problems more effectively, lead teams with confidence, and ultimately create a more positive and productive work environment.
And the best part is, these skills can be learned and developed over time.
That's encouraging.
It takes effort and practice.
Yeah.
But it's an investment that will pay off in countless ways.
Absolutely. So keep learning, keep practicing, and keep pushing yourself to grow.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And remember, the future of facilities management is not just about the hard skills.
Right.
It's about those soft skills that make all the difference.
I completely agree.
Well, this has been a great conversation.
It has.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into soft skills in facilities management.
It was my pleasure.
Until next time.